I'm going to hit you with something you don't expect because we didn't, Dr. Kissinger and I didn't really have enough time. And there was one question I wanted to ask him, I forgot, which is, what do we do with Pakistan?
Well, I think that, in 2 weeks, we're going to bring a group of musicians from Pakistan to Jazz at Lincoln Center. They're going to play on 59th Street at the Rose Hall. Their name is the Satchel Jazz Ensemble. And they're going to come up and play with us, and we're going to collaborate with them. And they're actually from the minority religion in Pakistan. And they can get beat up for just walking down the street with their instruments. And their leader is a man named Izzat Majid. And after 9/11, Izzat Majid wrote the type of attack on bin Laden and what he had done far superior to anything that we even saw in our country. He's a man of profound and deep intellect and concern about the world. And these musicians are so soulful that when you meet them, you just want to hug them. And we're going to do the same thing that we should do everywhere in the world. We need to find the nuances and the things that we have in common. It's one thing to know histories and traditions, but there are many things that all people have in common. The first thing, we all have to drink water. So you can start with something that fundamental. In music, we deal with rhythm. For example, there's a rhythm that the Pakistani musicians play. Play that habanero for me, Ali. Play that habanero rhythm for me. And we're going to play it, and I'm going to show them the difference between the Pakistani way and the way that we play. And when we play with the musicians from Pakistan, there's one rhythm that they play that's exactly like a New Orleans street beat. So I'm going to start just with our rhythm section demonstrating the sound of that rhythm if we were in New Orleans. And we would sing chants to this rhythm. Let's give them an example. Play like New Orleans music. And you recognize that as New Orleans music. Now, when we play with the Pakistani musicians, you remember that song? That's actually the same rhythm. Doom, 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 doom. So we find common ground as something actual. And we don't deal necessarily with the dynamics of power. We deal with the power of similarity. And that search for balance is something that always works, even if it's you with yourself or you in your house. You can be in your home and you have to find some way to find a similarity with the people you live with. Could be your children, could be your wife, could be you yourself alone. Sometimes you got to get with yourself and say, man, why am I so crazy? Let me find something that returns me to some level of sanity so I can actually become myself. Wow. And that's what we need in our country right now. We've lost our minds. So we need to come home.
Speaking of our country, you just spent a month, I think, taking 90 musicians on a road trip across America. What did you discover?
Well, I've traveled up and down America in a car because I'm afraid to fly for over 30 years. And I figure I've driven across country over 20 times. And I discovered the things I always discover, which is that the beauty of our country from many ways. And of course, we have many different types of people come out. Madeleine Albright came to a club in Washington, D.C. to check us out. Kofi Annan loves the music. He comes and one of the great rabbinical scholars, Leon Wieseltier, came out in Washington, D.C. Gunther Schuller, one of our great intellectuals, came out in Boston. The Secretary of Transportation. Anthony Fox came out in North Carolina. And always their parents and kids and young people. I always like to be the last one to leave. Many of the musicians up here, Carlos and Ali, I met when they were 12 or 13. They were just kids. Our conductor on the Abyssinian tour, I met outside of Augusta, Georgia. Damien Sneed is his name. He was 12 years old. So I meet many people from Gunther Schuler's 88. I met a 9-year-old trumpet player named Emmanuel who had an afro, reminded me of mine in the 70s. So I meet a lot of people, I get a chance to talk, and mostly I see parents who love their kids, and I see people who work with kids, and they bring them, and they wait after jobs, and they want to see what you tell their kids, and they want to see how you treat them, what type of respect you come with. So it's always uplifting. You know, we have a country with a lot of different voices. So it's very, very difficult to find the common thread, but it's there, and it's in our culture. We don't know that yet, but it's there.
You know, you talk about not flying. I just want to tell you the story about Wynton. After the storm, the hurricane, we decided we needed to reopen the city to get everybody back, and the only way to do it is get Wynton to come. And I didn't know you didn't fly, and we said, okay, we're going to do it Martin Luther King weekend. And at one point you called me, I said, where are you? And you said, I'm on the interstate just heading into Georgia. I couldn't figure it out. You were driving from Carnegie Hall.
Right. I drive, yeah. I've driven, I once drove from New York to Albuquerque, outside of Albuquerque, just to open the Jazz Center for a friend of mine. After I finished, I drove right back.
Wow. You know, one of the things you've always done, like your dad, is deal with education. Are you worried about the lack of arts education?
Yeah, I'm worried about the lack of cultural education, and I mean, it's showing up in the way we deal with each other. We don't know our traditions and our customs, so naturally we're not ourselves. It's kind of like if you don't have a memory, you can't remember yourself, you're going to have trouble. Dr. Kissinger, when he was talking, he was going back and talking about the history of different places. And it's very difficult to make intelligent decisions when you don't understand the decisions that have been made. When he made the comment about 4 to 8 years is too short of a time for us to turn over our interests, so all of the secretaries of state come together. It's a philosophy we've had in jazz for many years. It's nothing to see an 80-something-year-old person playing with a 15-year-old person. That's what we do. So you have to keep all of your generations around you.
You know, you've said about mutual trust being something you learn with music, something that you said a moment ago we don't have in this country now. Show me something about that.
Okay. That was an example of it. I started a song, they had no idea what I was going to play. So they were just waiting to hear what, I didn't say I'm going to play this song. So I started, I said, okay, Carlos came in. When he figured out what the song was, then Dan came in. Ali played a different groove. Now we're going to do it again. Now we could start off another way.
this notion of you answering with music. Cool. Give me another musical answer, which is, tell me how jazz is related to the country that created it.
The first thing about we're a country of frameworks. The Constitution is a framework. Our roads are built on a framework. New York is built to a grid. Companies are run by a framework. A skyscraper the building we're in is a framework, and what determines what goes on in each floor is what's happening. This room is not duplicated downstairs. So our music is stacked in choruses. We're gonna play some blues, and I'm gonna show you how the choruses work. Each chorus has 12 bars. Let's just play it. So we can organize it by, let's just play through a chorus of blues. And everyone in this room probably knows what a chorus of blues is. Let's do like the. Okay, so. Okay, that was one chorus. Now, that's the framework of everything that we're going to play. Inside of that chorus format, many things can go on. One chorus can be a piano solo, it can be a trumpet solo, it can be trumpet and bass, it can be drums. So as we do a performance, we're going to just organize it by choruses, and you'll hear how the framework allows us to come together around the music. So the music also allows space for us to improvise a form. Dan played, Carlos played, Ali played. We didn't know who was going to play. We just went in a traditional order, but the music has a framework, and then we're able to improvise from our different perspectives on that framework.
My last question will be about the iconic musicians that you've encountered over your life. And I'm going to let you all just use that as a way to riff on whatever you want. But before you do, you once told me a story a long time ago about your daddy introducing you to Louis Armstrong. And you thought Louis Armstrong wasn't all that cool. And I think the song was Jubilee when you discovered maybe he was so cool.
Well, coming from the 1970s, we were right after the Civil Rights Movement. I had my afro. None of us really wanted to hear anything about the past. So we considered all to be Uncle Tom and booty kissing, being from New Orleans. We hated New Orleans music. We felt like New Orleans music is just something you're always playing for tourists, glad-handed, smiling. Even some people would play Dixie. Why you play the theme song of the Confederate Army? You have to be out of your mind to do that. The music was called Dixieland. We hated that. Why you call music of freedom after the theme song of an army of people that wanted to keep you enslaved. So of course, we thought it was ridiculous. And the thought of Louis Armstrong with his white handkerchief, smiling and grinning, when you don't know history, we didn't want to hear about that. Just Uncle Tom in the worst, lowest caliber. Of course, I also didn't know any of the man's music and had never heard it. Why? Because I knew he was a Tom. So why would you listen to the music of a Tom? And I read a book about Richard Wagner once by a guy named McGee, and he said in it, "Prejudice survives all evidence." And I never forgot that line. There's also a book by Thomas Mann called Dr. Faustus, in which someone said, "Do you know emotion greater than love?" Leverkusen, and the character answered, "Yes, I know one greater than love, interest." So when you're not interested in something, it really doesn't matter what it is, because you're not interested in it. So my father was a deeply intelligent man. I think the greatest education in my life was watching him growing up. He's a man that struggled, jazz musician, played for the same 6, 7, 8, 12 people in clubs. I only saw him struggle. He's a man who handled that struggle with unbelievable grace and dignity. I can remember seeing my father play in a club, 2:30 in the morning, 2 patrons in the club, one drunk and the other incoherent. And I went to my father and said, "Hey man, let's go. These people are not paying attention to what you're doing." He said, "Man, be quiet. This set is gonna finish at 3 o'clock. And the set finished at 3 o'clock. And the type of integrity I saw him exhibit, the way he dealt with people, it could be a bum on the street or the mayor. It made no difference to him. He treated everybody with respect. He could have a long conversation with somebody. I never forget with my father, one time we were in a car and we saw police abusing some brothers, treating them bad. And I looked at my dad like, "Man, can you believe this guy is treating these people like that?" My dad looked at me and said, "Man, it must be terrible to be that cat." He always had a way of looking at something. So, yeah, he told me about Louis Armstrong and being his son, and being also ignorant. Just because I was the son of someone who was not ignorant, I had to establish that I'm not like you, I'm ignorant. So, but he was also a very patient man. He was an unbelievable teacher because of the depth of his patience. He said, "Man, you need to check out Pops." He would always say, "Check Pops out." I said, "Pops, man, I check Pops out. Pops smiling all the time, ain't nothing to smile about. Check Pops out, man." I left New Orleans when I was 17 and came to New York. My father sent me, then it was a cassette tape of Louis Armstrong. He said, "Learn Pops' solo on Jubilee." So I said, okay, I'm used to learning real fast, hip, modern music. Man, let me listen to this old time music. I'm just gonna practice this solo, and I'm gonna just call my daddy on the phone and play this for him and tease him. Man, I started to learn that Louis Armstrong solo. I was like, I couldn't play it. So now you gotta realize, I've played Brandenburg Concerto, I don't feel like I have bad endurance, but I'm thinking, man, Louis Armstrong was playing with that much endurance on a 3-minute album. Then that was the beginning of me understanding that you have to know there to go there. And there's something that my father would always tell me. He hated whenever you would say all of them or they. He would say, "Who is they, man? Do you know them? Have you been there? Did you talk to them? What did they tell you? Do you know them?" And if I would say all of them, he would say, "Son, all of everybody never does anything." So that gave me the understanding. I started to check Louis Armstrong out and develop a historical perspective about our music. And from that, I learned to embrace all of American music. I remember one time I was at an awards show where I gave Dizzy Gillespie an award, and Martin Gould was being given an award by Benny Goodman. And all I knew about Benny Goodman is I was mad because he was called the king of swing and he was white. I thought, man, how's a man gonna be the king of swing and he's white, and the black musicians came up with the music? I met Benny Goodman. I was like, okay. But I didn't know who Benny Goodman was. I didn't understand what the man had gone through in this country. I didn't understand how key and central he was to integration in this country. Milt Hinton was a great bass player that went to the Hall High School with Benny Goodman in the early 1920s. They received the same type of education due to the largesse of the Hall School. Milt Hinton had also come to my high school. I didn't know any of those connections. On the night of my senior prom, I sat in the trumpet section of Lionel Hampton's big band. And next to me was a man named Jimmy Maxwell. Jimmy Maxwell played lead trumpet in Benny Goodman's band in the late 1930s. Jimmy Maxwell took care of me that night. I never played in the big band. I didn't even respect that kind of music because that's part of the ignorance of our country. It's a generational ignorance. But Jimmy Maxwell was like, son, you could be a good trumpet player. You got a lot of talent. He gave me a trumpet stand. I'll never forget it at the end of the night. Later, many years later, I spoke at Drake University, and Jimmy Maxwell's son was the president of that university. And we talked about Jimmy. By that time, I had educated myself in American music. Thanks to Jazz at Lincoln Center, I never would have played in a big band or encountered anything about our culture. Hey, I made all A's in school. I was a good student. And I was thoroughly ignorant of what this country is about because I was miseducated. And most of us are miseducated. That's why my father was dedicated to education. That's why I'm dedicated to it. Because if we ever understand what has actually been achieved in our country and the greatness of it and the truth of it, instead of all these slogans and stuff that's just basically bullshit that's given to us, we'll truly be great. We won't need slogans because people sacrifice a lot for us to be here, and they came together. Yes, we have a legacy of slavery. We have a legacy of overcoming slavery, and that's the legacy that was in our music, and that was what was in the sound of Louis Armstrong, and that's what my father taught us. So I'm not going to go on and on. We're going to just play. And I know, no, man. I mean, you know, these are just the basic fundamental truths of our music from all the musicians, black musicians, white musicians. It doesn't make a difference. Paul Simon told me something that was funny. He said, man, if you really want to know what's going on in these countries, go talk to musicians. I was telling Walter one night, I was playing in Abu Dhabi. We played a concert opposite a great Iraqi musician named Nasir Shamma. And he played a concert the night after my septet played. He played a concert with the Cairo Philharmonic. And he played with only his left hand. I went to his concert. This guy was unbelievable. Playing up and down. He played a Mozart piece. He played something else. Played some traditional music. It was 1:30. He said he was going to call me and we were going to get together. It was 1:30 in the morning. He calls me. He said, okay. I went to his hotel room. I sat down in a chair like this, and he sat across from me with his oud in his hand. And I asked him, can you tell me something about Persian music? Can you tell me something about Iraqi music? Can you tell me something about Middle Eastern music? I left his apartment at 5:30. This man wanted to talk so much about politics, the United States, Iraq, how many people got killed, who we bombed, what the people are about, why he plays with his left hand. It had nothing to do with politics and kind of sound bites that you hear on television. The man was so for real and so alive and so full of not anger or wanting to say he hate Americans. He was like, man, that's not where we're coming from. For the world to come together, now that was education, to sit in front of the great Nasir Shamma. Hey, he's a little younger than me. I'm 52. He was like maybe 49, 50. He was like, man, you're getting old. He started playing. So, you know, the musicians know what they know. They don't know what the politicians know, but they understand something about how you have to give something to come together with people. And it's like when we collaborate with all the musicians we can't do everything we want to do. We cannot do what we want to do. I like to swing and play in 4/4 time and play long solos. When I play with them, I might have to play on their clave. I might have to just sit and listen to them. You know, sometimes that's an option. Sometimes the option is to just listen and not do anything. Just be like, okay. So, I think that's the one thing that jazz music teaches us. Other people have important stuff to say too. Listen to them, and you're going to hear what it is. And it doesn't make a difference who the other is. Sometimes it's yourself. You know, sometimes you're the other person. But I'm going to get off my soapbox and we're going to play a tune. Okay, thank you. This is a song by George Gershwin. And I love this song because my mama used to always sing it. And you know, she had 6 kids. It was a struggle. My 5th brother was autistic. She had a hard time. When my mama would sing this song, she would really be happy. And my daddy would play with her. And my father's a great piano player. And my mama, she'd do the best she could. But we would tease her and mess with her, and she would laugh, and I played this song a lot. You know, I used to try to play this song every night. It's entitled Embraceable You.
Ha ha!
Dan Nimmer. Dan Nimmer on the piano. Carlos Enriquez on the bass. Ali Jackson on the drums.